The Exxon Mobil refinery in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. A fire erupted during maintenance activities, severely burning 4 workers. The fire occurred when operators inadvertently removed bolts that secured a piece of pressure-containing equipment to a type of valve known as a plug valve. When the operators then attempted to open the valve, it came apart and released flammable isobutane, which formed a vapor cloud that quickly ignited.
During our investigation, the CSB learned that the operators attempting to open the plug valve were following accepted practices within the refinery. Unfortunately, those practices lacked a safety hazard analysis, which needlessly put the workers at greater risk. The management of safety is critical to the protection of workers and the integrity of facility operations.
The fire at Exxon Mobil's Baton Rouge refinery occurred in the sulfuric acid alkylation unit. There, isobutane and olefins are converted into a major component of gasoline through a reaction involving sulfuric acid. On the day of the incident, 2 operators were preparing to put a spare isobutane pump into service. To do so, the operators needed to open the pump's inlet plug valve. That plug valve was operated manually. A hand wheel and a piece of equipment called a gearbox were connected to the valve by a support bracket. The gearbox uses gears to make it easier to turn the valve stem into the open or closed position. The operators turned the hand wheel on the spare pump's inlet plug valve, but the gearbox was not working properly, and the valve would not open. When the gearbox was malfunctioning, it was an accepted practice in the alkylation unit for operators to remove the gearbox so that a pipe wrench could be used to turn the valve stem and open the valve. The gearbox was connected to the valve body by the support bracket using bolts. The operators removed 4 vertical bolts from the valve. But unknown to the operators, these bolts also secured a critical pressure-containing component of the valve known as the top cap. Approximately 3% of the numerous plug valves in the refinery's alkylation unit were designed so that the gearbox support bracket attached to the top cap. With this 30-plus-year-old design, removal of the gearbox support bracket can have catastrophic consequences. Approximately 97% of the valves were newer models with updated design that did not connect the gearbox support bracket to pressure-containing equipment, making it less likely to remove the incorrect bolts. With bolts removed from the top cap, one of the operators attempted to open the valve by rotating the valve stem with a pipe wrench, while the second operator stood by and observed. The valve immediately failed and came apart. Pressurized isobutane escaped from the valve, forming a flammable white vapor cloud. The 2 operators warned others in the area and directed them to evacuate. Approximately 2,000 pounds of isobutane released to the atmosphere. The vapor cloud likely found an energized welding machine roughly 70 feet away from the initial release and ignited. The resulting fire seriously injured 1 Exxon Mobil employee and 3 contractors working in the area.
Our investigation into the incident revealed that management at the Exxon Mobil Baton Rouge refinery were accepting of operators in the alkylation unit removing malfunctioning plug valve gearboxes without adequate written procedures or training.
The CSB also found that although refinery operators did receive training on hard-to-operate valves, the training did not specifically address how to remove an inoperable gearbox from the older plug valve model.
In our safety bulletin, we outlined 3 key lessons learned from this incident.
The first key lesson is to establish detailed and accurate written procedures for workers performing potentially hazardous work. This is especially important when different types of equipment or configurations exist that could cause confusion. A second key lesson is to provide training to ensure that workers can perform all anticipated job tasks. Training should include a focus on processes and equipment to improve hazard awareness and help prevent chemical incidents.
In our safety bulletin, we emphasize the hierarchy of controls. This is a method of evaluating safeguards to provide effective risk reduction. Within the hierarchy of controls, an engineering control, such as improved valve design, is more effective than a lower-level administrative control, such as a sign warning workers that the gearbox support bracket connects to pressure-containing components.
The CSB found that the 30-plus-year-old valves left in the refinery were not explicitly required to be updated to the safer design. That is because the older design did technically adhere to current industry standards, which call for items like gearboxes to be capable of removal without affecting pressure-containing parts. That could be accomplished by removing 2 horizontal bolts that connect the support bracket directly to the gearbox, rather than the 4 vertical bolts that secure the support bracket to the top cap. But on the day of the incident, the operator did not remove the 2 horizontal bolts.
The American Petroleum Institute, an industry trade association, says in its safety guidance for improving human performance to make it easy for people to do things right and hard for them to do things wrong. Updating all of the older valves to the safer valve design, as was done to approximately 97% of the valves in the alkylation unit, could have ultimately prevented this incident.
A third key lesson from the CSB's safety bulletin is to apply the hierarchy of controls to mitigate identified hazards. The CSB also found that in its most recent alkylation unit process hazard analysis, the refinery did not evaluate the human factors associated with valve operation and maintenance.
Had the refinery adequately addressed human factors in its most recent process hazard analysis, workers could have discussed difficulties with the removal of the plug valve gearboxes, prompting the company to identify potential hazards. As a result, the older valves could have been recommended for replacement, and the incident would have been avoided.
The safety management practices outlined in our bulletin could have prevented the fire in Baton Rouge. We urge companies to share and implement our key safety lessons at their facilities in order to prevent future injuries and property damage. Thank you for watching the CSB safety video.
For more information, please visit csb.gov.
Is this an argument or just the start of it? Either way, I don't wanna be a part of it. Can I just get some space? I don't have the heart